Rising inflation and increased wage expectations are just two issues dominating this important gathering, now in its second year. I'm Andrew Wilson from Reuters Plus, and I'm here at the Global Labour Market Conference in Riyadh. It's a conference that unites industry leaders, policymakers and experts in discussions about the ever-changing workplace and explores the challenges and changes we all face on the horizon. Today, I'm talking to Dr. Ahmad Al-Yamani, CEO of Takamol Business Solutions, a Saudi organization that provides workplace solutions for government, NGOs, and the private sector. Dr. Al-Yamani, pleasure to see you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
Let's start by talking about Takamol. Tell me a bit about your organization.
So Takamol is a state-owned company that is the execution arm for the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development. We basically execute all of the services and the operations on behalf of the ministry when it comes to the private sector needs of the labor market, government services.
And tell me a bit about Qiwa.
Okay, Qiwa is the digital labor market in Saudi Arabia. We took all of the services of the labor market, from visa issuance to contract authentication to work permits to skill verification to qualification verification to dispute management to labor mobility to wage protection to contract termination, and we put the entire thing in one digital platform. The objective was to make people's lives easier and faster. It used to take months and months to get a visa. You have to prove a lot of things to the ministry to be able to get a visa. And today, everything is proven or authenticated or verified electronically, and the visa is issued in 1 second. Same thing applies to everything else I said, whether if it's contract authentication, work permits, etc., etc.
So here we are at the GLMC discussing all these issues and more with a wider group of interested parties and governments and organizations from around the world. I wanted to ask you first about rising inflation and wage expectations and the kind of influence those issues are having on economies like yours and the other economies that are represented here.
So all over the world, inflation has created a need for all of the workers to demand higher wages. It's the natural thing. It's how it has been happening historically. What's getting worse at this point in time is that the inflation is coinciding with the mismatch between the supply and demand. Particularly in certain skill areas, employers are facing shortage of skills. That shortage, coupled with the higher inflation and the expectation of the workers, is forcing employers to pay higher. When they pay higher, what's happening is you're creating a disparity between existing employees and new employees. On the concept of mismatch, I'll just give you a small statistic of 85 million jobs that will be unfilled in 2030 globally because of skills shortage. People who have the necessary skills for the jobs do not exist in the market. And this number is worrying because attracting this type of talent will demand or require companies to pay them higher. You pay them higher, you're creating a wage disparity within the organization. That wage disparity is probably causing additional problems within the organization, culture problems, work environment problems, etc., etc., etc. What ends up happening is people will have to match the wages of the existing employees with the wages of the incoming employees. That will end up making it worse for the entire productivity or profitability of the company, and a vicious cycle will feed upon itself.
So that's the labor environment we find ourselves in at the moment. That's the dilemma we find ourselves dealing with. Do you think businesses are doing enough? What sort of voices are you hearing here? Is action being proposed?
People are realizing the problem. They're very aware of it. They're working closely to try to find solutions. And the best solution for that is continuous skilling and upskilling. If you manage to nudge your employees to add a skill or two to their skill basket, one, you will get what you need from the employee. Two, you will create an employee that will continuously transform himself or herself into a more productive or a more capable or a more suitable employee for the needs of the jobs. And the needs of the jobs are changing far more rapidly than they used to change in the past. And would Would I describe the readiness of the employers or the work of the employers as matching these needs? I'd say they're aware of the problem, working on it, but insufficiently yet.
So we have this forum of GLMC designed or proposed to approach and even tackle, come up with ways forward to the sort of dilemmas we're discussing. Are you happy with the forum that you've created here? Do you think this is the way forward for years to come?
We realized it was a need when we first thought of the idea. We realized that all of the labor markets around the world are working in silos. Every labor market is looking at itself as the entity that is being served or protected or developed, and all of the other labor markets as sources of inputs or outputs, whether that input is labor or that input is a product or that input is a service or whatever it is. And that otherness of viewing the labor markets in the world has created these silos, which we believe is not the right way if we want to face the challenges we've just described, globally that is. And we created the conference to basically put people together, bring them together in one room, think together about the future, think together about the challenges, think together about the needs they have from each other, think together about their youth, think together about their unemployment. And that togetherness is how we view as the best vehicle to face some of the challenges of the future. So am I happy with the outcome? Until today, I realize this togetherness. I see the ministers working together, discussing together, worrying together, and thinking about what they're supplying each other with together in one room. 45 ministers from all around the world are discussing, debating, deliberating, analyzing, forecasting, and planning for the future together. And we think this is our best bet as a global labor market conference. And hence we called it the Global Labor Market Conference, not markets.
I think breaking down the silos is inherent in that message, isn't it? And I think, are you optimistic that this platform is working, that this can only grow and advance the aspirations that you started with here in Riyadh?
If you look at the participation and the involvement of the International Labour Organization, the Secretary General was here last year and he's here again this year with a bigger delegation and with a bigger participation. If you look at the World Bank, if you look at the United Nations and all of the other partners that are working very closely with this, you realize that it is a working platform for the rest of the world. If you look at the individual countries, we had 30 ministers participated last year, 45 this year, and that number is continuously growing, and the interest is continuously growing. And it's growing because of a need. I think everybody noticed that this togetherness is more effective than the otherness. And they noticed that this is growing as a World Economic Forum specialized in labor markets. If you look at WEF and how people come together, whether if they disagree or agree or disagree, whether if they discuss, analyze, plan together or plan against each other, being in one room is more effective. And that's what's happening with GLMC. We noticed that need and we built the conference for that need, and it is addressing it quite effectively.
Dr. Al-Yamani, thanks very much indeed. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. Pleasure is all mine.
Dr. Al-Yamani there, talking about the need to break down the policy silos in the global economy. Join me for more in this series, Shaping the Future of the Labour Market, when we'll be speaking to other thought leaders and experts at the GLMC.